The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Shirley. Welcome to 15 Minutes of FAB, a segment of the Forever Fab podcast where I review products, services, experiences, and frankly, whatever, in 15 minutes or less. If the full-length podcast is a couture dress, for example, then 15 Minutes of FAB is like a button-down French cuff white shirt paired with leather leggings. If you don't have time to tune into the full-length podcast, then check out 15 Minutes of FAB, just a small dose. Some have considered it truth and beauty or plastic surgery secrets or as a nerdy or academic take on wellness and beauty with a dash of fashion. Consider it what you may. My aim is to engage you as a credible and authoritative voice in most, if not all aspects of beauty and wellness with a dash of fashion. That includes products, wellness services, technologies, innovations, new scientific research, and plastic surgery. As the founder of Holistic Plastic Surgery, my approach to beauty is through a lens of wellness that's grounded in science, backed by medical study and research, strengthened by my clinical experience, and bolstered by my surgical training with the use of principles and techniques of plastic surgery. And then there's my love of fashion. Of course, I feel uniquely qualified to talk with you about beauty, wellness, aesthetics, and plastic surgery, as well as products and services within those spaces, not only because of my extensive, and may I add, expensive training and expansive background, but also because I'm one of you. Many of the human issues around aging and being a fierce fab person, as well as an agent for positive change, I live these too, and I try. You're not alone. So together we can help the world become a more beautiful, forever fab place. So if you'll have me and give me at least 15 minutes of your time, let's get at it. In this new year, I've decided that it will be one of expansion and discovery. So I'll explore all sorts of topics, near and possibly far-fetched, while still focusing on the topics that make the Forever Fab podcast, well, fabulous, namely fashion, the art of living well or wellness, and beauty. As part of my philosophy of holistic plastic surgery, which I created well over probably now 15 years ago, where I believe that beauty emanates from within, wellness plays an integral role in my practice. And this goes for many aspects of life that help you to live in grace and beauty, including nutrition, exercise, products, services, technologies, mind, body, spirit, and science. The title of today's 15 Minutes of Fab episode on the Forever Fab podcast is The Beautiful Doctor-Patient Relationship Part 2. Last time I spoke with you about what you can do to help improve the relationship, the professional relationship with your physicians and your healthcare practitioners. So this week, we're going to talk about what we, the doctors, the physicians, the surgeons, your healthcare providers, what we owe you. So the topic is pretty much about your rights as a patient that are protected by law. In the American healthcare system, your rights as a patient are granted and protected by laws such as HIPAA, or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. In addition, you also have basic human rights, frankly, that are inherent in the ethical practice of medicine. And this goes beyond the Hippocratic Oath, which I'll touch upon a little bit later. But your legal rights include the right to be treated with respect, the right to obtain your medical records. Now, obtaining your medical records is interesting because you have a right to them, absolutely, but you still have to request them. And sometimes that request, depending on the office, comes with a fee for them to, fax it or email it or copy it and mail it, etc. But you do have that right to obtain your own medical records. You also have a right to privacy of your medical records. Now, I find this really interesting because there's so many people on social media posting, oh, I just got this job done and I got this little tweak done. I got this filler or that operation. I mean, that's totally your choice, but do know that if you would like to keep your tweaks and procedures and fillers and all that stuff private, you're completely entitled to, and that's your right. You also have the right to make a treatment choice. And hopefully, if you get to a place where you have to make a choice about what type of treatment that you want or that you think would be helpful to you, hopefully you would have been given all of the options, if you have any, and hopefully you do have more than one option. Your legal rights also include the right to informed consent. I mean, this is critical. How can you proceed with a procedure or even a medication if you don't know much about the procedure or the medication, any alternatives, risks, benefits, potential complications, adverse effects, side effects, etc. So inherent in that right to informed consent is informed from information. Try to obtain as much information as you can, both from your provider as well as perhaps on your own. Now, a little caveat about getting information on your own. I know a lot of people have their internet MDs. I understand that. But whatever information you do glean or derive from either social media or the interweb, you really should confirm that with your provider and make sure it's really the right choice for you. Your legal rights also include the right to refuse treatment. Now, as long as you are of sound mind, right, and you are actually competent enough to make decisions, informed decisions about your care and your health, you have a right to refuse treatment. Again, this is something that I would for sure discuss with your provider and your family, your loved ones, etc. You also have the right to make a decision about end-of-life care. Now, this one gets a little tricky because, again, you have to be considerate in your right mind and competent enough and have capacity to make those types of decisions. So that tends to be a lot fuller than just I have a right to make this decision about the end of my life. So that gets to be a little complicated. And some states actually require a little bit more than just you're saying, well, I have a right to make this decision. So hopefully that's something that you don't ever have to deal with. But if you do, then know that it's complex. So those are your legal rights. But it's been said that, quote, every right has its responsibilities. Like the right itself, these responsibilities stem not from man-made law, but from the very nature of human or humanity and society. The security, progress, and welfare of one group is measured finally in the security, progress, and welfare of all humankind, end quote. And that's a quote by Louis Schwellenbach. There's another quote, and this one by Robert Welch, which states, quote, the real freedom of any individual can always be measured by the amount of responsibility which he, she, they must assume for his, her, their own welfare and security, end quote. So, aligned with your rights are responsibilities. And in order to help ensure that your rights are granted, you actually have to fulfill your part. You actually have to fulfill your responsibilities as a patient. You may ask, well, what are the patient's responsibilities? I'm going to tell you. Maintaining healthy habits is the first responsibility. And that includes, but not limited to, nutritious food choices, adequate exercise, effective stress management, restful sleep, responsible alcohol consumption, and refraining from smoking and illicit drug use. I mean, that's a lot. Those are your responsibilities. So let's say you're taking part in some of these activities and you're not being responsible to yourself, and then you go to a physician and you have some complication of some of your activities, yeah, yes, of course, the medical system is going to help and heal and cure and do everything that it can, but you actually have a responsibility to do what you can for yourself. The next responsibility, the next patient responsibility, is showing respect to healthcare providers and their staff. I was in a friend's apartment when I was growing up, and he and his mother were having a situation, and it was kind of tough to observe, but I'll never forget what happened. So his mother said to him, "Listen, you better show me some respect," because he was being beyond sassy. And I remember him saying to his mother, "You give no respect, you get no respect." Now, clearly, this was completely inappropriate. I mean, this was, her son that she gave blood, sweat, tears, energy, everything to and raised. So he was wrong, but I do remember that phrase that he said. So as a patient responsibility, yes, you must show respect to healthcare providers and their staff. And for the most part, they will always show you respect, whether you do or not. But ideally, it is your responsibility to show them respect so you can, get the best care possible emotionally. The other patient responsibility is being honest with your providers. If your physician asks you a question that perhaps you're not comfortable with, do know that your healthcare information is private, but you must be fully transparent so that, again, all of the information that's needed to provide you with the best care possible can be provided. The other, or another patient responsibility, and yeah, I know there are quite a few, but another one is adhering to treatment plans. When your physician says, "Here are the following things that I recommend that you do," ideally, you should adhere to those and be compliant, right? So, but being compliant is there's much more to being compliant. It's not just listening and acknowledging and saying, "Yes, I will do it." You actually have to adhere to the treatment plans. Don't just do it, once. If it's a 7-day treatment plan, don't just do days 1 and 2, do all 7. Another patient responsibility: prepare for emergencies. And what does that mean? Does that mean have a go bag ready? Well, sure. But when it comes to the doctor-patient relationship, preparing for emergencies means be prepared to provide your list of medications, your list of current illnesses, and a list of operations if you had them. Be prepared to provide as much information about yourself as you can. No one knows you better than you. But in order to optimize and create a beautiful doctor-patient relationship or healthcare system-patient relationship, provide them with as much information as possible so they can help you. Another patient responsibility: be discerning about healthcare issues. Ask questions about your condition or about health issues that affect your community. Maybe what you read, in an email, a mass email, or on social media, maybe that really won't affect you or shouldn't affect you or doesn't apply to you. So make sure you ask questions about your condition to your healthcare provider. Another one of your responsibilities is to make informed decisions responsibly. Make sure you get the information. Make sure you've weighed the risks, benefits, potential complications, adverse effects, and all that stuff. Discuss it with your loved ones who provide you support, right? So maybe just do the right thing and make informed decisions responsibly. This also means understanding how medications work, whether they're prescription, herbal, over-the-counter, etc., and also their possible effects and interactions with other drugs. Sometimes people forget that if they're taking 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 medications, you have to make sure, with the help of your physician and your pharmacist, that those 1 or 2 may interact with the 3 or 4 and may cause effects that are untoward. Another one of your responsibilities is to meet financial obligations. Yeah, in the United States, healthcare costs, and sometimes it costs a lot. And hello, insurance, if you have any, costs a lot. So make sure, sometimes you can't make sure, you have a situation, you have to have it dealt with immediately or emergently or urgently. But do make sure that when those bills come, you try to manage them as responsibly as you can. And I know that can be difficult for a lot of people, unfortunately. Another one of your responsibilities is reporting medical payment fraud and wrongdoing, right? If your neighbor is doing something to cheat the system, well, guess what? He or she or they are not just cheating the system, they are potentially cheating you and your other compliant neighbors as well. So do report it. Another one of your responsibilities is to do no harm. Avoid putting others at risk. Now you may be thinking, hold on a minute. Isn't that the Hippocratic oath that doctors have to take? Yeah, it's true. We do take that oath. And just FYI, in the oath, the Hippocratic oath, the physician pledges to prescribe only beneficial treatments according to his, her, they abilities and judgment, to refrain from causing harm or hurt, and to live an exemplary personal and professional life. I mean, when I read that, it sounds like every human being can take that oath. But yes, I know it is designated for physicians only. So essentially, a sort of watered down version of the Hippocratic oath is the golden rule. So, okay, you're not a physician, you're not going to take the Hippocratic oath, but try to live by the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. I think it's a good one. So this concludes this episode of 15 Minutes of Fab on the Forever Fab podcast. As always, if you love this episode of the Forever Fab podcast, please share it and subscribe to the feed. Listen to past episodes or check out who's coming up next on foreverfabpodcast.com. If you enjoy listening to the Forever Fab podcast and you want more, get more audio and visuals with a membership through Patreon. Choose the gold, platinum, or diamond tier for premium added content, special co-hosts, lifestyle videos, branded merchandise, and maybe even private access to my clubhouse by visiting patreon.com/foreverfab. If you're a founder or you represent a beauty brand and you want to be featured on an episode of the Forever Fab podcast segment of 15 Minutes of Fab, send me some stuff. Visit foreverfabpodcast.com and fill out the contact form. For general holistic beauty tips or to set up an appointment with me to discuss your personalized options for leveling up your beauty, visit elementsandgraces.com and sign up for my newsletter or just give us a call. And for an online e-consultation on time, anytime, and on your time, visit clicklift.com for your wellness, plastic surgery, beauty, and wellness questions on the go. That's click-lift.com. It's time for the elevated house call. Jet Set Beauty RX offers beauty on-call services near your home or other domicile, delivering beauty in the privacy of a medically equipped mobile aesthetics unit. Reserve your appointment at jetsetbeautyrx.com. Thank you for listening to this week's Forever Fab podcast episode. Until next time, stay beautiful and fabulous, inside and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.